Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's weekly get-together, where we're live from Grand Prix City, Melbourne. Yes, big weekend, of course, down at Albert Park for the Grand Prix. Melbourne showing off its diversity in terms of weather. I mean, we're known for our variety and diversity. We love variety and diversity here in Melbourne. 37 degrees on Saturday, 17 degrees and absolutely pissing down on Sunday. But it made things, well, a little interesting. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show tonight as well. And joining me, well, some of the people who were in fact there on the weekend. And we've got joining us is Peter Johnson, who was there for all 4 days. Working there, of course, was Craig Doc Latigo, and watching on from television is from the wonderful world of Queensland is Mark Jones, who'll be joining us in just a minute when I click this button here. Welcome everybody, and yes, thanks for joining us. First of all, I mean, let's Peter. Well, we'll start with you because you were there, sort of in the role of spectator. I mean, we've heard all of the news about what an amazing success it was. You've been there plenty of times over the years. Done most of the Grand Prix. From your standpoint, what was it? Did you notice any changes? Was anything better or worse than previous years?
Well, the only thing worse was Sunday, where they called off all the support races, but we were, in fairness, we were due for a wet race or a wet weekend. But sadly, it happened on Sunday, and they called off all the support races. And I reckon if they called off or shortened the Grand Prix, there would have been a lynch mob. Because I said to the person who I was with, I said, if they call this off, we need to get out of here as quickly as possible because there's going to be a riot if they.
Yeah, I've always thought the Sunday is a really bad day to go because, I mean, if you go on Saturday, you obviously get a practice session, you get qualifying, you get some supercar races usually, you get, your Carrera Cup races and a few of those things. Friday's a good day, I think, to go as well. The problem with Sunday is everything is, of course, focused 100% around the Grand Prix, and it's quite often that, support races are, curtailed, cancelled, whatever, for the sake of the Grand Prix, which is the main event. So, I mean, and you're stuck around for it was 4 o'clock or something when it started, or 3 o'clock when it started. So, you're hanging around a lot of the days. Doc, you were working there. What was the feedback from the punters at your end?
Good evening, everyone. Hi, guys. Great to see MJ, Pete, Richard, and Chief. Yeah, look, everyone was behind on setup. I was there for the 2 days leading up to it, and I can see the infrastructure behind the scenes was whether it was thrown out by the public holiday on a Monday or we're back to the first race of the year and just the logistics weren't there. But anyway, we seem to have got up and running. And the public wouldn't have known any different on the Thursday morning to a certain extent, except for a little bit of scurrying. Yeah, I think everyone thoroughly enjoyed. Very hot for the first 3 days. I think everyone realised that there'd been a few changes, of course, with the Supercars and the Porsche Carrera Cup that were brought in closer to the track rather than further out in the gardens.
That seems to have got some really good feedback. A lot of focus that I've heard from people who went there said they really liked that setup. They thought it was way better than previous years.
So there's usually behind the track a whole lot of food trucks and usually the legends and the old cars and stuff like that. And then behind, and then sort of a huge lawn area. This is behind the track on the beach side. Instead of putting all food trucks and all amenities like they did last year, they ran a huge bank of marquees of supercars, a little gap of about 2 cars wide that you could drive through, a couple of cars you can add to that section, and then all the bank of the Porsche Carrera Cups. And it was completely open for accessibility. Supercars and Porsche Carrera Cup had, obviously, prior warning. They knew where they were. They were doing setup on the Wednesday when I was there. the transporters were put off to the side as well too, so they were not accessible, but you could see them, and they were part of the I suppose activation, and then the F2 and F3s in fact got kicked over towards the golf course a bit more this year than what they were. So I mean, but they still were able to be seen, and you could go to them. It's just a bit of a walk or a hike around to them, because all the car clubs were asked if they wanted to, they could put displays over there. Our good friends at the MG Car Club of Pit Lane were over there, and there's some Merc displays and you name it. So, and BMW. So, yeah, it got sort of adjusted a bit. They put it into the 5 zones, as Pete would realise as well, though, too, you know, your Melbourne Walk and so forth. And yeah, so the feedback was good from the clientele. It was a slight improvement. The amenities were better. Bathrooms were a huge problem last year, massive problem. There was lineups in between every session, or red flags, or safety car. So I didn't see any of those problems I saw last year. And the other improvement that I thought, there was a bit more variety when it came to food, and a little bit more variety when it came to drinks. I think they listened to the public with that, and not just stuck to a couple of sponsored brands and you were stuck drinking that or eating that. There was a slightly more variety in that, and probably you couldn't actually help it, but a lot of places got flooded and turned into mudslides on Sunday. But that's part and parcel when you get so many millimetres of wine dumped in one particular spot, and yeah, it all is. But so yeah, generally a lot better feedback on some of the stuff, and hopefully they all. Unfortunately, as you just mentioned, Brett, that and I agree totally with Pete. People were very disappointed in the support categories, but look, a lot of people were trying to take shelter everywhere, and I was loving it. I just stood out in the weather, because I'd had three days of hot 30+ degree days, and I didn't even put a poncho on. I just let it hit me and drowned in it, because it was just so refreshing.
Yeah, I must admit,
also,
I did the same thing here. As soon as it started, I got up in the morning, and when it started to rain, I went, "Oh, I'm going for a walk in this."
I was one of the parts of the areas I was with, the Hill stand, the Stewart stand, the Amex stand, and also an accessibility area. And I was working with about 25, 30 people there, and it flooded up to your knees around the back of the Amex stand, and everyone's shock horror and stuff like that. I just walked through it, and everyone got a good laugh out of it, and took a few videos of me and have a bit of a wash. And because the runners and the socks were already soaked through anyway, so I just walked through it like I was walking on the way to a park, and because it didn't matter, it was quite refreshing. So
One thing I will say, uh, in terms of shelter, like when we had the advantage scheme, or when we had schemes for people that have been going regularly for years, there was the advantage bars, um, but unless you were corporate, there was no shelter on my side of the track, where there was no shelter, so you couldn't have any shelter on in the rain, and also on the Saturday when it was 36 degrees, there was no shelter.
I noticed a lot of people were complaining about that. You know, the Grand Prix were out there putting there saying, "Hey, stay hydrated and stay in the shade, everybody." And people were going, "What effing shade?" And if you compare that to Adelaide, Adelaide was always, and whether it was the Grand Prix, or whether it's the American Le Mans Series, or now the Adelaide 500. The grandstands there do have shade cloths over them. They do have some coverage. There's lots of shade. There's lots more temporary shade around the place. There is, I mean, even at Bathurst this year for the 12-hour, they went to the effort of putting in a lot more, shade areas for people to stand under. Whereas, as I said, I didn't go this year, so I don't know what it was like. But I know the last time I went, it was pretty.
You've got those stands, and you've got the screen. We call it screen in the operations industry. The black screen that goes all around of it, and then of course you've got each of the stands I was working with had obviously accessibility to go up and under the stand, and you walk up the steps and do a U-turn and go up to your seat. The problem is with that, with fire or health and safety or whatever it may be, is they are egress. So whether it be hot, I had to tell people they weren't allowed to stand in there, and I just got abused. And it was pouring rain. They wanted to shelter under the stand in those things, and I'm saying, sorry, you can't stand under here. You have to stand out in the rain because it's an egress. Because what would happen is you let one person do it, two persons do it, and then it turned into 20 people, and then it becomes completely blocked. So you actually can't let people stand in those areas underneath to hide from either the hot weather and sun, or you can't let them stand underneath the pouring rain because they become a safety issue, hazard. So I ended up in all sorts of blues with people because I was following the rules, and they just don't provide huge areas of marquees like Pete's suggesting, which you could stand under for shade or rain anyway. You just got to stand under the thing. So I did allow a couple of people. Go,
in
Pete.
previous years before COVID, before 2020, there was the advantage bars, and people wouldn't necessarily go there to drink, but they would go there to shelter from the elements and just watch
But you could
races on
drink
the
there as
screen.
well, couldn't you?
You could, but what I'm saying is you didn't necessarily go there to drink, but you watched it on the screens, and then when the main race came, you might go out to your stand and watch it um, from your seat.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that it's a hard thing. I mean, with so many people there, but it does seem to be. There's no doubt about the success of it. I was in Melbourne on Thursday night doing some stuff, some filming for another project. And Melbourne, the city was just 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. The place was just crawling with people. I mean, because most of the shops were open, even at that time of night. Certainly, all the bars and restaurants and cafes and fast food places were all open. Place was absolutely buzzing, and I did happen to pop into a couple of licensed venues just for research purposes, of course, and they were absolutely chock a block full of. It was just a sea of papaya and red. That was the thing of people, and they were all young. I mean, I was talking to a couple of people, but the funny thing was, it's very much the Netflix generation because I was talking to a couple of girls at one of the bars, and one was wearing a Ferrari top, and the other was wearing a McLaren. And they basically said, we never watch the races. We watch I'm just going because I just love Oscar Piastri, and I saw him on on Netflix on Drive to Survive, and he's so gorgeous, and wow, apparently he races cars too.
I forgot to send it to you guys. I took a picture of the merchandise stand in my vicinity, and like a lot of other people, I'm not sure if it's been brought up. I think in our comments, there's basically the merchandise stand was split down the middle, and then one half of it was complete papaya, and the other half was complete for everybody else. And I'll put it on the group chat for us guys. Actually, I'll do it now. I'll put it on our Full Course Yellow group chat that we have for in the admin side of things, and a Oscar Piastri current one for this season, orange polo shirt, $180.
Yeah.
I think I'll get it.
What's that polo shirt made out of? Carbon fibre?
No recycled soft drink bottles. Pete?
No, hamburger wrapper.
The other thing I'll say, it appears that they're scripping and saving wherever they can, because last year there was at one of the bars for Joe Averages, there was seating, outdoor seating with umbrellas, but that had all gone this year. Like there were tables and chairs, and that had all gone this year. So it appears they're scripping and saving wherever they can.
There you
Well,
go, Brett.
apparently they're not.
You can bring those up if you want, Brett, and show people if you want to quickly bring those two photos up.
I haven't got them. I can't get to them from here at the moment, Doc. I can't. I used to be able to on the old platform, but I can't on this one. Yeah, it's funny. Apparently, they're not scrimping and saving enough, as you might see on the bottom. If we have a change of government in Melbourne, our potential new sports minister, Sam Groth, the former tennis player, has come out and basically said that the Grand Prix is he has acknowledged that it is an important part of Melbourne's tourism and marketing, and does wonders in terms of exposing the brand around the world. But he said that it is costing a $100 million a year, and that must stop. That is not sustainable. He's also saying that, quote, because of Labor, the Grand Prix is not fulfilling its full potential. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the potential had. A record crowd, record television ratings, record just about everything. Record, hotels were full everywhere. The restaurants and bars were full everywhere. I'm not sure what the potential. I'd love to have a word with him and find out, what more potential
where
there
the
is.
potential is, Brett. Yeah. Where is the
Yeah,
potential, Brett?
Well,
Um,
well,
Bashing
first,
motorsport is very on brand for Liberals, of course. Yeah, we saw what
Well,
Liberal
MJ.
government in South Australia did to the Adelaide 500, and and there was an issue with Newcastle as well, which may or may not have had something to do with blue tie government.
well,
Yes, it's funny. I mean, a lot of people would think it would be quite the opposite, but I think it's going to be interesting. I'm sure nothing's going to happen. There's certainly no threat to the Grand Prix at this stage, but they are saying that basically what Sam Groth has said in some of the interviews that I managed to get to hear was he wants basically more government involvement. He wants to be more hands on. He doesn't. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't trust isn't it wonderful
It
when
sounds
you've
like
got sort
Trump.
of you've got sort of a right wing political party saying we want more government. um,
So the
How
FIA
is
and the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, both of them need more improvement, do they?
when
Well, how does that mesh with a 2-week version of the Grand Prix with Supercars running the week before?
Now
well,
it's funny you mention that, Pete.
interestingly, I think um, like the argument that they used on Sunday for the cancellation of the supercars race was freighting. If they had an accident, it would be more expensive, or there'd be a delay. Um, Timelines would be tight in freighting stuff to New Zealand for Torpo. So either change the calendar or maybe do that. Maybe have a standalone supercars race um, at Albert Park, and
Well, it's
then
interesting. Auto action are the people who. Well, it started with the Herald Sun, I believe. I believe the Herald Sun, and as we know, I mean, there's as well say, like, is it a fact or did you read it in the Herald Sun? There is a little bit of a problem overall. Now, it's not a problem that perhaps is unsolvable, but it is in fact a problem, and that is a little thing called the Australian Grand Prix Act of 1994, which
that's
I
why
just
that
happen to
was.
have. I just happen to
I
have a
happen to have a
copy of
copy.
here, and it says here, if you have a look at Part B, it says that the two ministers may declare that a period not exceeding 7 days, as specified in the notice in the race period, in respect of a year specified in the notice. So when they did set this up, originally, in part of the argument that they used for the local residents, they said, "Oh, if we have this Grand Prix, the next thing you know, there'll be a supercar race. They'll bring the bikes here. They'll do all sorts of things." And they went, "No, we are going to put it in the Act, in the Grand Prix Act, that specifically it can only be done." For basically, the track will be designated a Grand Prix circuit for 1 week only, 7 days. Now, whether how much wriggle room is there? Could
Well,
they
I can tell you
could they
that. I
put?
can tell you that for a fact doing operations. So we, as I said, I did operations as of Tuesday morning, and the accessibility for everyone trying to, as they call in the hospitality industry or whatever you want to call it, bumping in and out was so difficult. So as of 7 a.m. midnight, Monday night, through to the following midnight, Monday, the 7 days, as Brett's saying, you have got to get everything that hasn't been done into place that up to that point that you can have that wriggle room to do. And that includes obviously shutting down the track. Now, that might remember at a specific time in the afternoon, maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever it, I think it's usually about 6 or 7. Sorry, they didn't they show the supercar races and the Porsche races on the telecast because obviously for what television rights deals or whatever it may be. But as soon as that race finished and the safety car went around and it was declared for the day, they opened up the track and literally within seconds I would look over the track and there were people running around it, people on their bikes, people doing all their exercise and just hanging out on there. So on a split second. So that 7-day period is probably borderline right now, making it happen for what needs to be in there now.
Well, you have a look at it. I mean, basically, the places, obviously there's on-track action Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. There's often stuff happening on track on Wednesday as well, sort of corporate stuff. There certainly has been over the past few years with Mercedes,
Certainly was.
Porsche,
Yep.
and I saw a couple of Audi R8 like GT3 cars that were there, giving the well-heeled and the wonderful
Ride days.
Ride days.
The Porsche Club were running around on a good half an hour on laps, whatever access they were allowed to do as well. Yep.
So they're allowing that. The other thing that have having this 2-week festival is that I have no doubt that one of the reasons they're sort of popping this up is they're having a look over the border at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, and they're also looking down the South Kippy Highway at the success of the Phillip Island Historic Classic, which is getting huge crowds as well. And I'm sure they've already sort of it's been flagged that a part of this all Australian Wonder Weekend might be a celebration of Australia's rich and wonderful motorsport history. I imagine that both the Adelaide Motorsport Festival and the VHRR would be pretty furious at that because they've tied in well with the Grand Prix. I mean, the VHRR have been gazumped by the Adelaide anyway. So what happens now? They both get gazumped by the supercars. I personally can't see it. I reckon there would be hell to pay, especially when you consider that there is an election just around the corner, and Labor want to desperately trying to hold on to the inner suburbs, which they're losing to Greens and Teals at a
Greens
terrible
are out
rate.
too. No, I just saw the latest polls today. Greens are going to lose 2 seats around here. The possibility of losing 2 seats too. So there you go.
Well, whether that happens or not, it's certainly on the inner city. I imagine that it wouldn't go down well with a lot of the residents in Albert Park if they suddenly turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, you've had 4 days of." We've given you 4 days of noise and 4 days of there, but we're going to give you another 3 as well the week before just to get you in the mood. I don't think they'd be happy about that at all, and I really can't see it happening. But you mentioned, Doc, something about the big screen. I'm wondering if this is because I was wondering what Mark meant by this. Mark saying, any thoughts of the media blackout towards the support classes trackside? So what happened? What, there was no coverage on the big screen or something?
So
I had coverage on the big screen.
Yeah, so just quickly what he means by that, because what I did for my half day, I got home after lunch yesterday and I I recorded Friday, Saturday, Sunday completely. I think with 5 hours worth on Friday, which I was able to watch into the evening last night, and I've got 8 hours of Saturday I've started watching when I got home from work tonight in the background. I've been able to work out the differentiation. Just quickly what you mentioned about the VHRR, Brett. A lot of those cars that you and I went down to last weekend, a lot of the Brabhams and vintage cars, and especially the interstate ones, which we did elaborate to when we were down there. I don't think we put it on a live streaming like that. A lot of them stay around there, and they stay in Victoria and camp around, and then they got parade laps called the Shannon's Parade Laps over the weekend.
They always do, yeah.
So they got a section which wasn't telecast. As I said, Porsche and the Supercars didn't get on the telecast as well, though, either, which is still I've got actually playing in the background
So
right now.
so what is
And
this?
new,
The big three stuff. So
new
what they did
Dakar.
was,
I certainly they were certainly on the KO the Foxtel coverage.
Yeah,
they weren't on the
they would be
Channel
on
10 one. They weren't on the Channel 10 one because I've been watching the Channel 10 one all the 5 hours like yesterday and the 8 hours, well, bits and pieces of the 8 hours. I haven't seen any of that today. So what they were doing is you've got Rusty, Greg Rust, you've got Crailsey, Matt Nolte, all the local commentators, and of course some in the international one. So what they would do, they would swap them over. So if they had Crailsey and Damon Hill and somebody else commentating the F1, P1, practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, but if you were at the track, they were actually Crailsey was commentating the supercars and the Porsches and stuff like that. And then so they'd swap over for Channel 10, but when they were at the track. And so when Rusty would do exactly the opposite. Rusty and Cameron Vanderduggen, who doesn't do anything on Channel 10, I've noticed so far in the day and a half I've watched of the Friday and Saturday. He is not even on the telecast whatsoever with Channel 10.
No, that's always been separate.
Yeah, he's doing the opposite of the track. So that's what they're doing. I thought, they're probably having a break in between. But no, they're actually doing Channel 10 stuff in between, and then they're doing the on-track stuff, and then vice versa. So I'm watching the complete switch, like the Superman opposite of each other on the track in Channel 10. So they were constantly commentating, but doing the opposite to each other from Channel 10 and on track. So yeah, there you go. And the big screens, yeah. So they basically had Cameron Vanderduggen and Rusty were doing the F1s with a bit of, and on the and Crailsey was doing the supercars with Matt Nolte in the support categories at the track, and they swapped it over for Channel 10. So it's a bit confusing if you were trying to watch Channel 10 and you're at the track at the same time because but I wasn't. I was at the track the whole time, just listening to.
I think
and then you had something slightly different again on Foxtel / KO,
which you see, I had Crompo. So Crompo and Scafie. Crompo did a little bit of on-track stuff, but nothing on Channel 10, of course. Yep, and then so KO had a completely different thing again. So they all must have had their own clipboard for whatever races they were commentated and not sanctioned to, but this is your schedule for the 4 days. This is what you're commentating, what race and what day and who for. And yeah, because a good friend of ours, Mick Webb, who's been very vocal over the weekend, and he's saying get rid of a couple of particular commentators, especially one of them who he has a great passion of. Let's see.
I wonder who that would be.
And you did not hear or see him at all at the track or commentary or anything at all, or Channel 10. He wasn't anywhere near a microphone. So Mick, I hope you shout out to our mate Mick Webb. I hope you were watching Channel 10 or at the track because you would have got your wish.
That's
on Thursday.
That's a classic. Go on,
Thursday on KO, they had a different lineup for the supercars. Like Garth Tander was filling the Mark Scaife role, and
Chad Neylan.
Yeah, Chad Neylan was filling in for Neil Crompton.
Yeah, apparently the deal, at least with Crompton, is that Cromley had some Formula One things, I think some corporate things available. I'm not sure the situation.
Well, he was also on the he was also doing some work for F1 because he was showing up he was showing up in some of the interviews with the Sky F1 people.
Ah, right. I didn't see that. Yeah, because I didn't see anything much on Thursday because I said I was out doing something else. So so that's interesting. I think that there's a lot of people who've got their hand up and saying that they would prefer certainly Chad and Garth. Garth has been such a surprise. I mean, if you'd have said when he was racing that Garth Tander would be a really top line media performer one day and a top sort of commentator, I'd have gone, I don't know about that. but he has been. I thought of the
He's-
Bathurst 12 Hours. I thought he was fantastic there, and I think that he would be a substantial improvement on that
He's less-
coverage for the supercars.
He's less given to hyperbole, and he's calm, and he doesn't explain what we've seen. He explains behind what we've seen, if you know what I mean.
And he's also the other thing about him is that he's not it's not that sort of blokey sort of hey I won more races than you, mate. Tell us about your championships, buddy. And he just sticks with. He's very professional, and I think he fitted in really well at Bathurst with John Hindhoff and Richard Crail. I think that was a really great threesome. In terms of a three-handed commentary group. I mean, obviously John Hindy isn't available for over here, although he'd probably say yes if he was asked, but he was sort of busy on the weekend himself with another major international event we'll talk about briefly, because that's what
Just quickly, guys. I can't see him in the chat yet. I said to Brett I needed to quickly butt in tonight for 2 seconds. There was a couple of things Pete might have. Oh, there you go. On cue. I didn't even. There you go. Thanks, Brett. On cue. So, Brett, I hope you heard this over the weekend, Pete. It was either Thursday or Friday at the track. There were 2 things that were pointed out, and this went over the whole system, over the thing, like as if it was commentary or talking about a race. They and the whole 4 days this was done, but they praised the marshals, whether it be Rusty, Cameron van der Duggan, anyone. They just actually heard it probably more than any other.
They bloody should.
Yeah, I know. They always do, but this time I think they really made more of an effort. Every commentator made more of a point about it, and sometimes you heard it 2 or 3 times a day rather than just the one-off by one commentator. I think it was really relayed. I think it was the commentators also taking for themselves, but I can't remember who did it, but I think it was either Thursday or Friday, and there was 2 big ones that came out of it. Other than all the heaping the praises they do, was one, it's the first time in Formula One in Melbourne and all the that 3 generations of flag marshals were at the track. There was a grandfather, a son, and a grandson, and the grandson was his first go at it for the year, first Grand Prix. So I can't remember their names, so forgive me, but that was just a great event. Yep, thanks MJ. A round of applause goes there. And the other one was, I think it actually might have been Cameron mentioned it, Cameron van der Duggan. It was one of the support races earlier on Thursday or Friday, and they were talking about it. And the man on our comments that Brett just brought up a second ago, it doesn't matter. Congratulations. He threw out a great big thank you out to him. And he called him Knackers actually over too. He told Paul van der Acker said 39 years of flag marshalling, and he met him at the track. So don't be bashful, Paul. You met a few people over there and congratulated and they heap praise on you guys, especially you for your 39 years of giving yourself to the sport and
the McLean family had three generations, so thanks for that.
Congratulations, Matt. I actually almost stood there, saluted, took my hat down like the Australian flag when I heard them talking about you. I know I thought how rapt I was for you that was mentioned and the appreciation.
I must admit, I'm almost missing because I've watched it on KO. I'm almost so I didn't see any of the Channel 10 coverage at all. I'm almost regretting not watching it now and I don't know if somebody can tell me who this person was, but this is so Channel 10. John D saying, the Channel 10 panel lady told us about the Aston Villa Formula One team at the race. So Aston Villa
And
well, it wasn't right
on Channel 10 News. Somebody did that
was Channel 10 News, was it? Rosanna was there, and she does that all the time.
Could have been on the panel, but somebody else did it on Channel 10 News as well.
Where's Aston Villa?
Who was the lady in white they had on Sunday? I'd never seen her before. Where did she turn up from on the Channel 10?
I didn't see Channel 10.
I can't even remember her name. She was very
I'm
forgettable.
still halfway through Saturday, Richard. I'll get back to you next week.
So
Yeah,
I take it
yeah, interesting.
it wasn't Jess or
No, no,
or Rihanna.
no, no.
No,
This
Of
okay,
course not. They
this
wouldn't be.
this
just yeah,
woman was probably as
yeah,
blind as a
Rihanna.
bat walking around a pit lane. She.
Paul saying that he feeds Marshall's statistics to Cam so
There
hence
you
he
go.
got the mention. Of course, Cam. We talk about people, families. Cam's family were very heavily involved, and they was sort of honoured for 40 years, which I suppose, Knackers, you'll get next year. But our mate Roger Churnside was there as well, and Warren Reid, and a lot of people that we know well from over the years from our time in Victorian motorsport. A lot of those people were honoured on, I think it was on the Thursday, where they were brought forward. So yeah, it's good to see. I think it's one of the things. I mean, well, it was one of the things that Lisa Crampton was talking about when she came on the show was to make sure that the marshals and the volunteers were given the acknowledgement that they deserved, and and I think this is really important as well, as Paul is saying, just under 1,000 volunteers and 28% of them women. I think that was always the thing that we're looking for ways to get women, particularly young women and young people in general, involved. And when you look around now, there's a hell of a lot of young women getting into the marshalling areas and all the rest of it. And I've seen, I've spoken to a few of them, and I've a few of them I've followed or followed me on Facebook, and they all seem to be having a great time and saying that we're really getting this is fabulous stuff. We love the camaraderie. We love we're getting treated well. We're being treated with respect. We're having a great time. So this is all
Brett,
good. This
when you and
is
I go to the track,
What
when you and I go to
what
the track,
country are
we're
they
approached
working
by.
in?
Yeah, I get it. When like Phillip Island, Brett, when you and I go to the track or we go at the sand and all like that, there's plenty of the girls that come up to you and I and say hi, we love the program, we watch it, or great to see you, Doc, or Brett, or whatever it may be. I find that it's just as many girls, the opposite sex, whatever they be, they come up and always speak to us just as much as the guys do. You notice that, Brett? So anyway.
Well, it's been one of the things I've been proud of. I tell the story years ago about the woman in the Stud Park shopping centre who came up and just out of the blue said, "Can I get a hug from you?" And I went, "What?" And she said afterwards, she said, like, in terms of and it has changed a lot in general, but in the way that sort of motorsport used to be covered in Australia, because this was a long time ago. And she said, "I just want to say I really love the sport, and finally there's a motorsport show that I can watch with my girls at home that isn't sort of constantly showing grid girls and crotch shots and making jokes about women at the track and all the rest of it." So we've always had a
Open policy.
surprisingly large number of female viewers on the show. I know that Channel 31 for a while went, wow, there's really wasn't expecting this. So yeah, I mean that's good, and we need to get more women involved. We need to get more young people involved, and that's, I think, the good thing about the Netflix thing is when you looked around that crowd, there were so many young people. And I was out at Calder Park on Friday night for the off-street drag race, and I was amazed. They had an incredible crowd for an off-street drag racing event, and once again, it was lots of family groups and lots of young people, and that was terrific.
Hey, Brett, remember when we were young and we went to the motor racing? The only way you'd get to meet a girl was to have a serious injury, and she was called a
Yeah,
nurse.
yes, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not
Oh,
wrong.
no.
Nurse Betty, Nurse Betty.
How could I forget?
How can we forget, indeed,
Well, we,
Richard? I thought
well, we're
I'd throw
going
that
to
one in
do.
for you. I thought I'd throw that
We're
one in
doing.
for you.
Here we go. We've just been going so
Inside
well
joke.
on
Yes.
the girl stuff, and then you go and start doing carry on movies. Oh boy.
But anyway, well, yeah. So, what do we think, Mark? Your assessment, looking on from far off Queensland. What did you think of it all?
I loved every bit about the Grand Prix. I mean, I always do, but nonetheless, I just loved this year's race. It was a fantastic race, um, and it's
Did you
a
get your breakfast
fantastic.
videos I sent you?
I did. I saw you sent some stuff through, but it arrived at time that were a little bit awkward for me, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, I took
Um,
those before 8 o'clock in the morning for you guys for
oh,
breakfast for
sorry.
you and
Actually, I
I.
did see them. Now that I'm remembering, yes, I did. I did. I did. And thank you very kindly for that. That's right, because that was Wednesday and Thursday stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, at work that was. No, I didn't watch anything at work. If any of my colleagues, no, I didn't do anything at work. No, I stopped doing that. Um,
What
no,
is that noise?
oh,
Wrong, wrong.
no, I genuinely loved it. It was a fantastic race. I thought Lando Norris was exemplary. I mean, sure, he had that little bit of an off, but there was an off that anyone could have had under the circumstances at the time. Is How good? Yeah, it came up in one of the comments there about Piastri going around the outside of Lewis Hamilton on the last lap of the race on the outside in the wet on the wet line. That was a that was a cojones move. I thought that was probably a bit of frustration over how the race had unfolded to him, being fed into a bit of ego, saying I am doing this come what may. But it's fantastic fantastic to. It was just great racing everywhere. We had some good stuff going on. Where Antonelli, Paul was another star performer. He got his fourth place back. We saw on he got assigned a 5 second penalty that pushed him to fifth, but that penalty has since been rescinded and he's back fourth again. So yeah, the battle of the six rookies was fascinating to watch all of itself. In the end, Antonelli kind of won that kind of convincingly, and you had to feel for Jack Doohan and Isaac Hadjar were both of their first Australian Grand Prix being over within a lap of the race starting.
Yeah, very
And
unfortunate.
Carlos Sainz,
What
who
do we?
very much
What
not a rookie.
particularly in light of some of the stuff we said last week about what do we think about the idiot Marco jumping up and down and carrying on and saying that how embarrassing it was to see just to see Isaac's emotion after that. I just say congratulate, well done. It obviously meant a lot to Isaac. He was obviously heartbroken, and he let that go, and that's fantastic. But number two, a real shout out to Lewis
Alex
Hamilton's
Hamilton?
dad, who
Yeah, that's right, Brett. That's what I
who
thought.
just I mean he sought the kid out. He saw him coming back, and I mean what does bloody Marco want? Does he want him to push over out, like get out, or does he want him to throw the helmet down and kick and push marshals away and all the rest of it? No, I mean the kid was heartbroken. He'd obviously been building up and building up and building up, and then it was all over just like that. In some unfortunate
Three
circumstances.
quick comments because I'm going to reply to a question that's on the screen right now. Wood Daniel from John D. Thanks everyone for Knackers, box, all the stuff that Brett hasn't put up tonight anyway. So hello to all you guys. Appreciate your input. Thanks for listening, blah, blah, blah. John D's said, would Daniel Ricciardo do better than the Red Bull? Yes, potentially would. But Daniel has done his time. He's finished, blah, blah, blah. So quickly on those three points. One,
better.
Daniel Wood. You've got to blood the new drivers. It's as simple as that. You've got to blood them. If you don't put them in, they don't have a go. Two, with the helmet thing, just ignore it. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to talk politics. I'm not going to comment on him like that. I'm not going to make things. If you don't not interested in his comments, just ignore it. And three, Ollie Behrman showed it. You've got to gradually start your weekend and your career slowly. I watched when he binned it and he crashed it, and then they crashed it first, then binned it. He went too hard too early. He just basically, he's got the races last year. So there's the three things. Simple. Off you go.
I think, I think Daniel Ricciardo would have done better than Liam Lawson. I'm sorry. Um, it, uh, um, and I think it was interesting because Isaac Hedger, when Lewis Hamilton's father, who I can't remember his name, but Lewis Hamilton's father was coming up towards him, didn't realise who it was, and was almost going to look like he was almost going to deck him. He came up to embrace him, and it was almost. And then he realised, and he went,
Yeah, I thought it was a lovely I thought it was a lovely moment that that he did there. He cared for the kids because he just said, the kid's a long way from home. He's been building up and building up for this, the greatest day of his life. He's at a very young age. He's made Formula One, and it's all gone backwards. I'm amazed. Like it's only one race, and the conditions were terrible. But I'm amazed at how many people are like piling onto to Liam Lawson for a start. I mean, there's already, I think, Autosport have already got him sort of, they've moved away from Jack Doohan now. I mean, Jack did well enough in qualifying and in practice for them to say, okay, well, he's probably up to it, and he's probably at the moment he's safe for now. But Lewis,
Well, the Alpine
Liam,
team principal actually acknowledged that they had been too hard on him in the media after the race, and like they'd been too hard on him in the build up to the race. So I thought that was very noble of Alpine to Oakes. I've forgotten his first name.
Oliver.
To make mention of that after the race, to point out that that was maybe something that they hadn't done well. But then again, Alpine and driver management hasn't always been their thing.
no, they do have a very bad track record
And
on that sort of thing, and I
when
don't think it's going to necessarily get any better as the year goes on, unfortunately.
when Jack crashed, the course commentators were sort of dropping hints. Oh, see, Colapinto's waiting in the wings.
Yeah, he's going to cop that. Unfortunately, he's going to cop that all year until and I think in particular, sort of like some of the foreign media. It's funny, like it's like a couple of. I saw a couple of and listened to a couple of podcasts, Formula One podcasts, and some YouTube channels, and a few of them, particularly like they were all based in England, and they were all saying, I don't know why they go. Like, I don't understand how Doohan has got into this, Um, so I don't know what's going to happen. He's basically got to perform, and it might be just the thing. If he's anything like his old man in terms of his stubbornness and it might be the best thing that's happened to him because he'll probably, it might make him turn up and say, oh yeah, you want to take this from, I've worked bloody hard to get this, and you want to take this, you want to take this from me. Let's see how with all your money and all of your profile and all the rest of it. I'm just gonna get out there and I'm gonna go fast. And if he out qualifies and out races, or even if he just finishes really really closely to Gasly, then they'd be very hard pressed. They'd be very hard pressed to get rid of him at any stage. They might start talking around and going, Pierre's getting on a bit, isn't he?
You can't tell me that
And
Alpine hasn't got benchmarks and KPIs all set in the background that he has to achieve in their own head at the end by throughout the whole year. And so, all the powers that be within Alpine would have, okay, he needs to make this, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. They're not going to say in public, they're not going to say they existed at all, but there'd be a general consensus in their heads on what he needs to achieve. And if he makes it, life will go on.
and they they were doing the same thing with Yuki Tsunoda, who and it's really annoying me. And it's annoyed me for last season and this season so far, is because Honda has stated, I don't know how many times I have to say it, Honda has stated that when Honda leaves Red Bull and Red Bull Racing, they want Yuki to go with them. And they keep saying, oh, See, are you listening, Red Bull? Yuki, when he came forth, are you listening, Red Bull? That was never in the frame. It's
Yeah,
really
Yeah,
annoying.
yeah.
yeah.
Yuki,
He
I
always
would,
came with the engine.
yeah, but
Yes.
I would have put Yuki into the Red Bull myself rather than
But
Liam.
as Pete's saying, they sort of can't because he's not a Red Bull. I mean, they'd have to basically get him away from Honda, because Honda have always been like this, and whether it's IndyCar or whether it's Formula One or sports, WEC or anything, it's really, really important. Like it used to be for Renault, although it's not as much nowadays, but it's very, very important for them from a corporate standpoint that they really should have a Japanese driver in there somewhere, because otherwise the local media get very upset and go, here you are in Formula One and you're giving all of this money and all of this exposure to some Australian driver, and we look at all these wonderfully talented Japanese drivers. Why aren't you? So they do insist that at least for one seat, that if you want the engine, you take somebody needs to take the Japanese driver, and it's Yuki, and he certainly did well on the weekend, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And then the problem is going to be, once they do make the move and head on over, where do they find a spot for him?
Fernando.
Well, he's so
Yeah, that's
small.
it.
They could find a spot for him anywhere.
Yeah, but we're talking about it, and as Pete's saying, I mean, you've basically they've only got two choices, because they don't have a second team unless they pull one out of their ass from somewhere.
I'll
So
jump on that one for you, Richard. I watch
they've either got to get.
Honda Civic running down the back straight sometimes. I wonder who's driving it. There's no one, because there's
Oh, it's Jordan Cox.
no.
Every Honda Civic,
No one's driving
every
that car.
Honda
Quick,
Civic
chase
in
it.
Australia is Jordan Cox.
Thanks,
But,
Richard.
Unless
Use that.
unless Adrian Newey wins the battle, because he said to Lawrence Stroll, you need to shaft your son. If we're going to get anywhere, you need to shaft your son.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, because of his age, I mean, you'd have to say that Fernando was on borrowed time, but at the same time, like if you were looking at it from outside, if you were suddenly put in, if Lawrence suddenly said to you, okay, you're in charge of this team, we need success, you've got carte blanche, I'm not going to second guess you. You do whatever needs to be done to make us a more successful team. The first thing you'd probably do is say, right, we get rid of your bloody kid. And he's not a terrible driver. He's just
Not going to happen.
He came home sixth in the end on the weekend, didn't he? He's sort of hung around there and had to fend off the Hulk in the back half of the race. And
He actually drove quite considerably well for the weekend, but at the same time, if it's a business decision, he's probably gone if Lawrence is there. But if Lawrence is there and he owns the whole show, well, there's lots of motorsport entities all over the world that have their kids that are the best in the world. So you don't have a choice when he puts every cent in.
Yeah, and he puts the money in.
mind
Hey,
you, there's
listen.
these things called Valkyries running around that could find a soft landing spot for.
Well,
for
yeah, I mean, for both
Stroll
of them,
Jr..
really. I mean, you can imagine sort of, like at Le Mans. I mean, a Valkyrie with, like Fernando and Stroll,
Lance Stroll.
Lance Stroll, got his name for thinking major senior moment. Lance Stroll in a Valkyrie in the World Endurance Championship would be a pretty good fit. I imagine that he could turn out to be a very good. We know that Fernando certainly acquitted himself extremely well in endurance racing. So you never know that
I've got a
perhaps Lance could
question for
also
everyone.
do it.
It's come up in elaboration many a times over the last few years, and especially now in the last 6 months, and only because it's of what's the situations. Lewis Lulu Hamilton is obviously at Ferrari this year. We haven't mentioned much about it tonight. However, I think he has an ulterior motive that he's not obviously speaking public for, and it is, and back me up on this or not, or just get your opinion on it. With Max now going for his fifth consecutive world championship. Lewis having 7th. Lewis is obviously massive focus is to win another world championship, and he's got otherwise he wouldn't be doing it. What's the passion? Blah blah blah. Love racing. I reckon he's also got there's an ulterior motive banking. If he gets himself another one, it stops Max ever getting anywhere near his record as well, though. Too. Do you agree with me, guys?
Yes, yeah, that'd be right. But at least in part.
Can Max get to 8 titles with a year lost to a Lewis title? That's fascinating. I mean, where's the I mean, Max has probably got at least another 5 years in him. So the
Yes, said he doesn't.
who
want to
else
have a
is
Ryan's
going
doing
to?
very well.
Where is the next world champion going to come from? Who is the?
Papaya, I would have said.
Yeah, Lando. You think is the man who's lining up to do to Verstappen what Verstappen did to Hamilton.
I think it's going to be interesting. I still think I'm still of the opinion. I said here and I said in a lot of places that I always, since he's made his debut, and it's not being sort of patriotic, because people know, I've got no time for that sort of shit. It really is a fact that I think that I believe that Oscar Piastri will probably win a world championship before Lando Norris does. I think he's a better racer. I think he's a better racer, and I think what showed that was what happened on the weekend with Oscar making his way out. And one of the commentators actually said it along the way, or a reporter said it somewhere. They basically said and they know him well. They said if that had been Lando or a lot of other drivers, he would have had about 3 or 4 attempts to get out of that spot and then just gone, that's it, it's over, that weekend's over, got out of the car and walked away and gone, that's it, finished. Oscar worked his guts out. He thought smart. He thought, I can't go out for, I'll put it in reverse. I'll see if I can get it out that way. He did. He got it out, and he he basically picked up a point, with a fabulous pass at the end. So good. I think that showed I think that showed the sort of driver he's going to be. I think he's going to be very, very determined. He's not going to take a back seat to anybody. I mean, and McLaren, they can say, oh well, we had, we said there'd be no team orders, but first race in there were already team orders, and they might have said they were reasonable. Yeah, they might have been reasonable sort of reasons for it.
Elaborated that the team orders were going into the weekend, and for the time being that they are in the weekend, because so everyone brought up the papaya crap again, and I'm sick of it as well too. Sick of it months ago. So I can't remember which commentator asked him. They said or they might have even asked Zach as well too, and Zach said there's nothing. So Oscar and Zach were basically on par with the way they answered the question.
Zach would have zero idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so the point being is Oscar said they're supporting us both as much as they possibly can. But if you get your nose in front in qualifying and on the grid out in the race, then you're going to be in the better position to be able to get the right pit stop, and the strategy will go your way. Secondly,
or a quarter of the way through the race, they suddenly slapped team orders on them, and then said, "Oh no, it's all right now. You can race." They made themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the argument they were using is they were coming up to late, and they didn't. But I think that Oscar and a few other people pointed out that Oscar was clearly, gaining on Lando a lot. And if they're racing, I mean, it's like, it's okay, you can race, guys. Oh, except when you're lapping, we don't want you to take advantage of slower traffic. We don't mind you dicing it out when there's no one else around. But when there's other cars around, we don't want you, because Oscar would have taken advantage of that slower traffic, probably got in front, and then he would have had the first call on the pits and all the rest of it. So, I was disappointed in that. At this stage of the year, it should have been, and it should have been just hands off. It was the only rule is do not take each other out. Yeah, that is the do not take each other out. That is the golden rule. That is papaya rule. Do not take each other out. Apart from that, boys have at it. Go for it.
Cool. All right, I got to get going,
And
guys. Yeah.
ups to
Okay.
we've spent the entire hour on Formula One, but ups to Cameron Hill. I've got to point out,
Yeah, great
first
performance.
come
Yeah.
in
Great.
and did it properly. It wasn't inherited. He did it. He did it properly, and 1-2 for
I was going
Stones.
to say, well done for Matt Stone Racing, full stop. Yeah, I was watching it all. Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
and
they had a
yeah,
great weekend.
yeah, they were
Oh, well,
Percat and
Percat's been
Hill
on
got
there every time
two.
I've been there watching it.
Yeah, they got 2 podiums each over the 3 races. So fantastic work for both.
Nick's always
Uh,
strong there. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, he had his big win at Albert Park last year, where I'm sure we all remember him running down pit lane after the car wouldn't
Oh,
let him get
actually,
back to Park Ferme, and
MJ, if you're going to do that, I'm going to take. I'm going to take stupid credit for this one as well, though. Too. I was walking through the paddock on the Thursday morning. I had to go to one of the central hubs or something, pick stuff up and take stuff out. And I was going past the Porsche garages, and I gave a quick handshake and a quick half hug embrace to Dylan O'Keefe and wished him well for the weekend. And he did well done too. Cracking weekend, Dorado. He probably had him on. Dylan would have won the last race if it wasn't the international brought in. So well done, Dylan, for the weekend as well, though. Too. I wished him all the best on very early on the Thursday morning, and had a cracking one as well too. But look, there was dozens and dozens of those stories all weekend for a lot of things.
And
Although
there's
one bad luck one is who's a good mate of mine as well, though too. When we catch Davey Reynolds. They were absolutely saying you were boxed around all weekend, smashed up, and it wasn't just on the weekend just gone. You had a bad Sydney, you've had a bad Melbourne. Please have a good one for the next one. And there's a few more in his boat.
Tapo, yeah.
And they were, well, they should have raced on Sunday because the conditions, I watched Telpo last year, and the conditions were identical to what they were on Sunday, and they raced.
Yeah,
Different officials.
yeah.
drainage is more of an issue at Albert Park, mind you. So the standing water
Different-
stands longer.
There was no
Yep,
standing
and the
water.
walls are
There was
closer.
more standing water on the platform I was sitting on than there was on the track.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you had wet tyres on, Pete. I mean, you had
So
them on
did they,
soon.
and apparently they had
I heard
better
he
wet
switched to
tyres than
intermediate.
last year.
I'm talking about Peter switched intermediates, didn't he? That's all right. Doesn't matter.
No, I think Pete was on. I think you're right. I think Pete was on
Full wet?
the wets.
Full
I
wet,
think
okay.
you'd need to. Hey, listen, just very quickly. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the ground. Now, of course, we've got the Chinese Grand Prix coming up again this weekend, and once again, it's in our time zone, so that's fabulous as well. Let's just
Moto
quickly.
GP2 was on the weekend.
I know Mark watched it as well as I did on the weekend before the Grand Prix happened. We got plenty of the Sebring 12 hours in. Another amazing performance to Nick Tandy. Congratulations. He's now the 10th driver to have won the Le Mans, Daytona and Sebring Triple Crown, 3 of the great sports car races of all time. So congratulations to him there. And it was a Porsche one too. Matt Campbell finishing second.
Josh,
Another thrilling race.
and props to Josh Burden too, who who was second in the LMP2 class, backing up second place at Daytona. So he and his 2 teammates are now leading the LMP2 class standings. So props to that. Tom Sargent came home 5th in GTD as well. We had the other Aussie in the race came home
Scott
10th
Andrews?
in LMP. Yes, thank you, Scott Andrews, 10th in the LMP2. Obviously, not the result they were hoping for, but did get home top 10. It was a fabulous race there too. We had it was actually it was a Porsche 1-2. They were the 2 Acuras that came home. I struggle to remember actually what the final finishing order was, but the 2 Acuras were chasing them for quite a long way. So they were right on the point. Right on point with the Porsches for a lot of the race. Yes, one of the Acuras was third, and then you had Cadillac. one of the Cadillacs, one of the BMWs, and the Proton Porsche all finished on the lead lap. With a second Cadillac only and a second customer Porsche just one lap down, and the Aston Martin Valkyrie was just 2 laps down. So a significantly improved performance from Aston Martin with the naturally aspirated V12 Valkyrie compared to their debut on the World Endurance Championship over in the Middle East a couple of weeks earlier, where they were nowhere and lost on pace.
Also,
So
sort of lost
props
in the
to the
weekend.
improved.
Lost in the weekend was MotoGP in Argentina. Yet another Marquez family domination, and Ducati with a 1-2. So well done to them. It's looking like it's looking like how far Marc Marquez at the moment. He's doing extremely well, and yeah.
Got
So
a
apart
lucky
from
13.
yeah, so apart from that, as Paul said before, pro motocross this weekend down at down my old stamping grounds, my old hometown at Wonthaggi. So head on down there if you're looking for some local motorsport in Melbourne to support on the weekend. Anything happening up in Queensland? I mean, is there anything left of the tracks after Alfie's run through?
Well, Morgan Park was left untouched because the cyclone didn't head towards the Darling Downs. It spat out to the north, and there is round 1 of the Queensland Motorsport Championships at Morgan Park, which I'm hoping, I'm going by faded memory here, I'm hoping was this weekend, since I make mention of it, but it is very shortly. As
Yeah,
I tap away
yeah.
frantically on the keyboard in the background.
So we've also got the Victorian State Championships coming up in a couple of weeks out at Calder Park. We also I sent a message to Doc today. The Melbourne International Motor Show is coming back. They have released they've sent out a media release or a media invitation. The list of featured OEMs for the is not quite as substantial as their marketing material would have had
As
you.
their billboards say across the whole of Melbourne.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. You go by, it looks very. We go, wow, that's fantastic, and then you get the list. I've never heard of some of those, but it'll be fascinating. It's a big gamble, and that's coming up in a few weeks' time. We'll be out there as well.
One quick one, which is not quite motorsport related, but also huge. I had to go to work to Geelong today under duress, and the air show is on coming up this week. So if you want to avoid congestion, I suggest you stay well away from between Melbourne and Geelong, because I started to see the infrastructure get put out today. It didn't delay my travels, but it's going to from today onwards, guaranteed.
Yeah, it's always traffic chaos down there for the air show. It's absolutely huge event. As Trevor was saying, Mount Lura Hill Climb, Victorian Hill Climb Championship in Camperdown this weekend is happening as well. Mark, you were going to say quickly?
Yeah, Morgan Park is this weekend for round 1 of the Queensland Championships, but also we sadly lost John French, the very great John French. 94 years old, 1981 Bathurst winner, of course. 1962 Australian GT champion. He was runner-up at Bathurst in the purple GTHO behind Peter Brock in 1972 when Brock got his first win. He was a factory driver for Alfa Romeo, for Ford, for Nissan in the Bluebird Turbo era, and a genuinely wonderful man on top of everything else. Alfa Romeo dealership in Queensland for forever, he will be much missed. Frenchie, he was a fantastic human being and a great driver.
When you have a look at that career, it's like it's a lot of. I think it was Dick Johnson who said probably one of the most underrated drivers that we've had. And you have a look at that long career. And I think the last time I spoke to him was about probably 10, 12 years ago now, and he was still obviously or even back then. I mean, he was around, getting on to being 80 years old, and he was still involved, and he was still out there. And just recently, I saw a picture after his passing of him at Phillip Island about a year ago for the historics. He was still getting around. He still loved his motorsport, and so our thoughts are with him. Also, just quickly, I know he probably won't be watching, although I know he's watched in the past. New South Wales-based journalist and photographer Bruce Moxon is having a bad time of it at the moment. His partner is in hospital, had a cardiac arrest, and is currently in ICU in a very bad way. So Bruce, our thoughts are with you and your family at this time. It's obviously a really bad situation. So our thoughts are with Bruce. Okay, everybody. Hey, listen, we have gone on much longer than we really wanted to, but I mean, you only get one local Grand Prix a year. Well, no, actually, you get two, because we still got a bike Grand Prix to come later on in the year, but that's well away. But we'll have plenty to talk about once again next week at this time. Now, just a very quick reminder, and I'll get this. This is the big plug. If you watch the In Pit Lane YouTube channel tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Melbourne time, you will see a behind the scenes look. We're doing the dress rehearsal tomorrow for our brand new Channel 31 show called the Tune Up. We've got a great band coming in, a Melbourne band. Cornerstone are going to join us for quite a few songs. It's sort of a mini concert every week. It's not just sort of, here's a band and here's a band and here's someone else. It's basically, we're going to take the idea is we're going to take a local band or music artist every single week. We're going to focus on them for 1.5 hours. So you're going to get, 3, 4, 5 songs, depending on how long they are. Be watching tomorrow night. You won't see it anywhere else because it's not going to air for Channel 31 for a long time yet. So if you want to have a look, and we're not keeping it up there, it's going to be on for that half hour and then we're pulling it down and it won't be on. But if you want to watch live, we've got a brand new crew. We've got lots and lots of some new possible hosts. We've got all sorts of things. So anything could happen. It could be absolute utter chaos, but either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll see you tomorrow night on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel at 9 o'clock for the Tune Up Live. That's coming up tomorrow night. Okay, everybody, thanks a lot for joining us once again. Really do appreciate it. It's good to catch up every week at this time. And until we see you next week, from all of us here on the tune, I'm going to say on the Tune Up. Last week in the studio, I was saying In Pit Lane, and this week I'm saying the Tune Up. But
well, I'm going to say enjoy those Rolls Royce engines flying above you this weekend. Have a great time if you go into the air show.
Yeah, have a look at it. If you go into the air show, I wouldn't go anywhere near that. Those things terrify me. Okay, everyone, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time, same time next week for another edition of In Pit Lane's Full Course Yellow. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later. Bye.